So one reason why I asked that question is because I'm kind of a philosophy hobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can see behind me are these guitars, and so
Yeah.
I'm a musician,
Mhm.
but philosophy is kind of my hobby, which I guess for some people it would be the other way around. Some people really like, uh, reading books or something, and for me, my hobby is, I guess, philosophy.
Mhm.
And so
Nice.
moral philosophy is something that I like focusing on quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit, because in a way it's sort of like what drives our behavior, and then kind of what you were saying, moving towards a bigger goal, the for humanity to improve. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think a lot about behavior and how and morality, and how the things that we do affect the people around us, and then affect the
Mm.
world, and affect how we are going to turn out as humanity. And so with kind of thinking a lot about morality and what good behavior or bad behavior might be, we can
Mhm.
sort of slowly move towards a greater
Mm.
good,
Mhm.
so that we can kind of agree upon maybe some of these things that
Mm.
might be better things to do, or
Mm.
agree that, some of these decisions might not be good decisions to do. And so in some ways it is just like, I like what you had said about um, what what we perceive as threats,
Mhm.
and how what sort of rewards we're driven by.
Yeah.
And so in some ways morality is kind of that as well.
Mm.
And so how we perceive threats, how we move forward, and the decisions that we make
Mm.
in order to make life better for ourselves and the people around us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I get it. I see. Interesting. Wait, so sorry. Are you recording this? You are.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. I think it's kind of difficult for us to fully try to predict. I mean, at the end of the day, like we're 7.8 billion, I think,
Mhm.
people, like, different circumstances, different upbringing, like completely different, like everything that we consumed, being raised, right? Like, I think it's very difficult, I think, in order for us to track down like what scares them, what motivates them. Like it's really truly up to the individual, given their circumstances. Um, but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess you can also take different approaches to that as well, because in a way a lot of different areas of study, if you will, all kind of have some sort of goal. And
Mhm.
so with economics or business,
Mhm.
the goal, or what you were saying about like having a dream or an inspiration, something to move towards, I
Mhm.
feel like with economics or business, it's sort of like creating more opportunities for yourself to grow, creating more opportunities for others to grow,
Mhm.
so that more people are able to do the things that they dream about.
Yeah.
And so, in a way, like economics is another way of trying to reach that goal of making the world a better place. And so
Yeah.
maybe morality talks about like what things can we do to make the world a better place. And sometimes economics is like what is money doing, and how is that making the world a better or worse place, and how do we want to use capital to improve the world, or improve ourselves, or achieve goals, or whatever that might be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's exactly the reason I chose economics, because like business, I mean, when we talk about business success versus like humanity success, or like you said, each study has its own goal, right? And then sometimes that goal conflicts with other areas of study. And when we talk about business, I think, I mean, it really comes down to the success matrix is all about like the financial matrix, right? Like how much money you make tomorrow, like day after tomorrow, like money now then later. That's capitalism. That's business. But in economics, I think it has a more macro picture of how things affect in humans' life, people's life. That's why it touches a little bit about education. It touches a little bit about technology. It would touch like about politics. So it has more space for caring for impacting people. And I
Right.
really like that about economics rather than business, because once again, like business, it's all about money. And then, I mean, I'm not against capitalism or business at all. Like I think business is something, I think we should have it in the system. Competition is good. That's what drives us. But I think that notion of like only caring for the money, only caring for just money tomorrow is something that I conflict with my personality as well. So that's why, like, you know, when I first started the one of my venture, like I had my sales partner because, like, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm bad at sales. I'm actually pretty good, but I just like, you know, like I'm not, I think I value happiness and I value people more than money. That I tend to give more. Like I tend to slip out the thinking of business sometimes, and I just feel like, why don't I just like give it, right? But I think it long term, this is something that once again I heard from Gary too. Like he said, like lots of businesses focus on money tomorrow, the short term money. And then, you know, it's all about, you know, Forex, drop shipping, like all this businesses where people come out and say, look how much money I made in this matter of like 2, 3 months. But it really doesn't work like that. I mean, like you romanticize entrepreneurship a lot in this generation, and I'm guilty of that too. Like when I first started, like I didn't necessarily understand the true concept of being entrepreneur, and that's why like I had to do a little bit of experiment myself. But then really come to the point where I found out like that it's the with all the context I'm given right now, it's really the only option I have because my pro is bigger than the cons. So, you know, now I really don't have any hesitance or regret of choosing certain paths or certain pattern of things that I do. But you know, I think a lot of people jump on to the idea because it's like so romantic and it's so like a bubbly topic that's talked about everywhere. And then they sincerely have wrong idea of what it's like, because I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs are quote unquote stupid because we only choose to be entrepreneur to work for 80 hours a week, that giving up 40 hours a week with a stable income. So like that's kind of the concept, but like people don't show that part of, but instead we show this, you know, look how much money we made in just a matter of 2 months, 3 months, and you can do the same. Like, and then you know, that's just conversion. Like, so this is, I'm borrowing the word from Gary. Like he says, Nike, why do you buy Nike for long term? Nike, that's because Nike built a relationship with you. Nike wasn't conversion. Like they didn't focus on conversion today or tomorrow. Like they focus on building a relationship and trust with you. So in long term, like it's probably a better business strategy, even that like you feel like you're giving a lot, but then in the end, like it also makes you build a relationship rather than conversion today and tomorrow, and then you acquire more like a returning customer that way. So I think still there is a way to make being a good person, even in business. Um, but I forgot what we were talking about.
No, I think you were getting right
Yeah.
back to it. Is it does seem like there there tends to be conflict with moral behavior and business mentality. I feel like one of the trappings of capitalism is that it tends to look for, I guess, 100% growth at all times, or more consumption, more, and that doesn't necessarily equate to making the world a better place, or whatever it might mean, because it's a little bit more self-interested. And so I feel like there are times when the goal of obtaining more wealth supersedes the desire to make the world a better place. And sometimes these people don't have the desire to make the world a better place, and they only want to enrich themselves. And so that's where a lot of these ideas of like, well, I'll help myself, but it's not going to help anyone else, and screw you anyways. And that can be really harmful to lots of people. And I like what you're saying, is that like you can definitely be successful. You can definitely have a profitable business without necessarily having to hurt other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I
How?
hope that. No, I hope internet is like making that more even visible. Like I hope that internet is contributing us to move in that direction, where we're more like relationship based era in business, like where, you know, our true intent can come out because we make us like authentic, like we present us authentically, and the customers really see our intention. Like if that's the case, if that will be the case, like we can probably to the point where we can't really fake it, then I think that'll be actually good for businesses, because then we needed to focus on growing us, right? Like growing our moral, like authentically, instead of like try to fake it. So I hope that the internet plays a role in that. That way, people will focus on being a good person in business.
Yeah. And I mean, the internet does make us more connected, but a lot of times people do tend to try to blame the internet or social media for how hostile people are towards each other. But that's kind of blaming the tool rather than blaming like ourselves, or accepting responsibility for the fact that we've allowed ourselves to express this crummy behavior. But
Right. No, I agree with you. Like, I mean, do you know Tony Robbins? I mean, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins too. Tony.
I know a little bit, but
Okay. So Tony said something interesting. He said, money only magnifies people. So, you know, if you're, you know, selfish person, like not caring person, whatever, when you don't have money, don't expect that you will become the otherwise when you have the money. Like you, and then I think that's so true. Like money don't change people. I think it just only magnifies who you truly are when you have more of these things. And then when you have that mindset, like you really don't have any excuse. Like you said, like it's a tool, and that allows us to do things at scale. But in the end, like the cause of that is us still. So we really don't have any excuse. And other than blaming on something, like we need to get to work. Like we need to change the fundamental things. So I very much agree with you.
yeah, I'm kind of noticing an interesting thing with you, is that even though you don't necessarily fully resonate with Japanese culture, there are elements in kind of your philosophy that like you do want to see uh the best of humanity. You do want to see people flourish. And while in Japanese culture, kind of the way that you had explained is like, we're succeeding whenever you are being a successful cog in the machine. Uh, and kind of the American perspective that you took is like, we're succeeding whenever we allow ourselves to fail and grow. And so it looks like you've taken these two kind of different philosophies and combined them. And so it's like when we allow ourselves to grow and fail, we can succeed, not just for ourselves, but to the benefit of everyone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I'm really happy that you said that, because that was my goal. Like I had this period where I got to work with and for a lot of different innovators and entrepreneurs and investors back in Seattle, because I was working in this like a very tech savvy environment with lots and lots of startups companies, and you know, even like a little bit like San Francisco and everything. Like I went to some conferences there, and I met some people, like, and then these people are very much like that. Like what I really liked about the technology industry, the stripes in technology industry, was like it still had that space for um creating the world a better place rather than like making a selfish money. Like these tech entrepreneurs were very future forward thinkers, and they really thought of the success as success of humanity. They wanted to contribute to make the world a little bit a better place. Like, and I was so inspired by it. Like I thought, wow, like, you know, all I knew at the time was business. Like I thought like my thinking in that direction wasn't deep enough. But that year, like I just got a lot of inspiration from all these incredible people, and I noticed that like this is the angle I need to proceed, because I need to be able to think at the bigger scale. I need to be able to think at success of humanity rather than success of or like on mine. And yeah, so I'm really frankly just glad that you said something like that, because that was where I wanted to be. And yeah, I think I have that now. Yeah, and then as I said in a previous episode, I guess we talked about my definition of love. And I think it plays a role into that as well, because I'm a caring person, and I think I carry a lot of loves in the definition I define, which is the willingness and the caring. So I want to be able to provide the loves to people, the humanity, also myself, my dream. And I think that's my ultimate goal right now is I never want to be neutral person. Like I always want to care for people. I'm talking about macro sense. I'm not talking about operation, but I'm talking about like life theme. I always want to be the person who's passionate, always want to be the person who's able to make other people feel something. I want to provide loves, like distribute loves, and then care for people and care for things, care for ideas, care for like I never want to be neutral. So once again, sorry, I got caught up and I forgot where the question was.
That's okay. That's part of the fun of the freeform conversation anyways.
Okay, good.
Kind of a thought that I have, and I guess just I'm going to ask questions, but you can feel free to ask me questions too. Yes. I guess as you're doing Life Up education and you're talking to people with different ideas of success and how they achieve that success, what's kind of been something that you've learned talking to all of these different people that you wouldn't have known yourself?
I mean, like, okay, so with my book being launched, I have been focusing a lot more on my book. So I haven't had opportunity to talk with a lot of people just yet, but I mean, I met like some really, really interesting people because I have podcasts for both Life App, but I also have that for Foreign Connect. And so with Foreign Connect, I focus on digital transformation, e-commerce, and startup incubation.
Mhm.
And basically, I interview people from America or from abroad who want to work with Japanese clients, and then interview them about how they do things in these three pillars. And then so lots of like smart individual with like really advanced skills, with like super rock star like work experiences and everything. So they have been very, very interesting to me. But one of them particularly comes to my mind. Actually, I he was so interesting that I just had to have him in both show, because he's just like, oh my god, like mind blowing. He's a scientist. He works as a scientist, the pretty much, well, I wouldn't say whole life, but the first half of life, I guess. He studied biology, chemistry, I think medicine even, in Princeton University. And then,
Mm.
so he had this like a really good job, like super established corporate scientist, like, right, like on top. And he was super stable, like made a lot of money. And then he all of a sudden just decided to quit. And then he would just go on his own startup, right? Like funding his own startup. And since then, he's funded accelerator for biotech companies, biotech and food companies. And he's also started his own companies, and he's read companies, he's advised the companies, and he just meets a lot constantly. He meets a lot of interesting people. Now he's advisor for startups. And one other thing I would say, I mean, I like seriously, I cannot explain how much of a connection or the inspiration or admiration I had from his conversation, from our conversation. And I really like him. But so one other thing he said was very interesting, where we talked about how to be authentic in business, like how to be authentically confident in business, because I think um like in business, also in marketing, the more you know, the more resources you can attract, and the more authoritative you appear, the more trust, and once again, as a result, the resource you can attract to you, right? So it really puts us in this weird spot where we don't have to feel lack of confidence, but then because of this like pressure of us having to be the one who knows everything, every answer, and then us being the having the correct answer, right? And then, I mean,
Mhm.
that really conflicts with the idea of entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurs are not, we don't know all, but the difference is that we're courageous, that there is always fear. The fear is not absent. But the difference of entrepreneur is we're courageous that we would do it anyways. That's it. Like there's no like we know better, right? Like we're, if anything, we're more vulnerable to risks, and we're more vulnerable to rejections. But we do it anyways. So that's how we roll. But then in business, like there's this tremendous pressure of like you having to, there's this tremendous pressure of the fear of being wrong, because when you're wrong, like you literally lose money, you lose your employee, you lose your whatever, right? So I think this is something I thought about for a little bit. Like, how can we be authentically confident in, and give us a permission to pursue our dreams, right? Because we always feel like, is this, does this sound strong enough for the investor or whoever we're pitching? And then we sometimes feel this need of showing them bigger than who we are. And occasionally at the operation level, it is like it is necessary. But when we reflect it as, I guess, a point of difference, and then determine if that corrects with our virtues, like, it's kind of questionable. So I brought up as a question to him, and he was like, we do this too. Like, this is an exercise he does with his entrepreneurs he's work with. And then one other thing he said is, have a confidence in your idea rather than in you're competent or you're like whatever. So, this is talking about like a visionary leader. So what he said is basically, so this idea, and if you do this in this way, that it's better. And if you don't do it, who's going to do this right? Who's going to do this correctly? No one, because you have this vision that you want to convey to the world, and you do it because it's better. So that's why you do it. And that was so mind-blowing to me. Like, I never thought about it that way, and then if I think about it, that's so true. Like, the vision that I have, the way I want to communicate about my life up, like, there's no one else in this world who can do exactly the way I want to do it. And then that's why I do it, like, literally. And I thought it was very mind-blowing, like intriguing, because I never thought about it like that. And yeah, anyway, so that's just the one thing. But he's mentioned like so many other different points, I think, of business and of life. So if you're interested, you should definitely check it out. But anyway, yeah, so that's one thing I learned.
What is this guy's name?
Ron Shigeta. He's also half, okay. I think he's also half Japanese, but I mean, Shigeta is definitely a Japanese name.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I've been doing this podcast for so long now. And so one of the main focuses of the podcast is that like philosophical grounding. Mm-hmm. Even though not everyone that I talk to has necessarily these broad philosophical ideas that they always think about, like I do. I'm weird, and I'm the one who's always thinking about these things. But it's like what I've really gotten is that there's so many different perspectives, so many different ways to live, and yet everyone is really interesting. Everyone has their own story. Everyone has their own way that they live their life. And that's been a super nice thing to know. Like, I guess one reason why I asked the question, do you believe humans are evil, is because I actually don't believe humans are evil by nature. And more, the more people that I talk to from different walks of life, mm-hmm. the more that I learn that like everyone is human. Everyone has their own story and their own reasons. And it's a really beautiful thing getting to just talk to different people, getting to know them on a different level, and really finding out who people really are. And then lately I've been talking to a lot of people that are more, I guess, business minded, which I'm kind of not at all, mm-hmm. which is weird. But like, I kind of had this perception, this prejudice, assumption, whatever it might be, that like, oh, business people are just kind of shallow, money minded people, and they don't really care about like these philosophical ideas. But what I've come to find is that lots of people are like that philosophical grounding is the foundation for the way that people operate. And mm-hmm. so you don't have to, like, just because you are a business person or entrepreneur or whatever it might mean, doesn't mm-hmm. mean that you don't have a deep reason for being the way that you are. And that's been a nice thing, that like any sort of negative prejudice or bias that I might have had is falling away the more people that I get to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I also am getting like a lot of cool business advice. Like that's nice too.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, like I'm seeing all of these ways in which like just improving my own life and improving other people's lives and seeing how other people help each other, or how other people have found their own unique way
Mm-hmm.
of becoming who they are, or finding their own success.
Mm-hmm.
And the more perspectives that I find, the more unique people are. And yet we are all kind of the same too.
I get it. I see.
But then I don't know. It's been a funny thing too with COVID, that normally I talk to a lot of like local people and a lot of musicians because I'm a musician.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've been doing more remote podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting an even wider variety of people from different places.
Right.
And
I mean, I'm
so,
from Japan. Hello.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, kind of like what you were saying about the internet, where we're capable of being way more connected.
Right.
Uh, and the weird thing is that like we're all stuck inside, but we're able to be way more connected if we
Mm-hmm.
let ourselves be.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes people feel really alone during this time,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not. It like nobody is alone. We're so capable of connecting with so many people,
Mm-hmm.
if we just find the right way of doing that.
Mm-hmm. I see.
What do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think, I mean, like, connecting over this, like, online video and everything, like, has never been a foreign idea to me, like, ever since I moved to another country. So, yeah, I still connect. I mean, like, for example, I don't have best friends living in the same country. It's very rare for me to have best friends living in the same country. I mean, one of them is, I mean, a lot of them are still in America. One of them is in Dubai. Like, I have another one in Sweden, like, like everywhere. And um, actually, I have one best friend here in Tokyo, but yeah, so we usually do, Skype and everything, like, all the time. So it's not very foreign to me. And I think one other thing I was thinking about in my head, to come back to your point, is you said, that, like, you kind of found this new finding about people, like, being just them, having their own story, and just because you're a business person or entrepreneur, whatever, like, it doesn't mean that their intention comes from, shallow, like, money oriented, perspective. But I was thinking, like, that's probably, one of the thing I talk about in my book is, for example, the behavior of, like, victimizing, right? And I think one of the things they need to abandon is to have this hallucination that they're special, because we're I mean, we're not that different, because we're human beings, and then we are living in the same era. I mean, like, I mean, to the core, I know I'm not that special, right? And I mean, not to be, like, negative about it. I think it's okay that I'm not that special. That's because we are ignorant people, product of ignorant society. And, like, we're product of our previous generation, which took the same input and then comes out as basically same output. And so there's not that difference. Like, if you put it in a chart, like, there wouldn't be that outlier, right? um so um to your point, I think the victim behavior, when I talk about victim behavior, I think one of the things they need to realize is that whatever the problems they have, it's not unique. There must be people out there in the world who has the same problem, or the problem at the even bigger degree, right? Like, so look, like, chill, like, your problem is not serious at all, like, right? Like, even if you look at it as serious, like, it really probably isn't serious. So I thought about, like, this. hallucination that we tend to think, you know, we're different from each other, which puts us in like, how do you say, not sympathy. Is it sympathy? Then empathy. There's the difference. So like at the end of the day, I think we do have this hallucination of like us being so different from each other. But once again, like to look at the humanity at the macro level, like we're not that different. And at the end, like once again, we are products of the same input. So we couldn't be that different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I recognize that pattern too. And I think once again, I think that brings me a little bit of peaceful joy, happiness. That's another, I guess, method that I use when I feel down or something.
Yeah. Well, that's a funny thing that well, I like that approach, and it's interesting because it's something that a lot of people would hear and it would actually bring them down, like, oh, you're not that unique, or oh, you can fail and stuff like that. But I like that you are taking these sort of conventionally negative approaches or negative experiences and kind of applying them in a positive way. It's hard to hear that, like, no, you're not that unique. There's 7.8 billion people on the earth. There's bound to be someone else a lot like you. And whether you like it or not, that's true. And so you can either I don't know, ignore that fact or accept it and move forward and become a better person with that knowledge rather than having it hold you back.
Right. So I think once again, that's like the application of what we talked about, I guess, when I brought up the difference from Gary Vee, like, you know, to the advice for new entrepreneurs, which is to say, don't listen to your positive or negative, listen to your market. And that's really that, like, don't be so soft. Like, I mean, shit happens and things happen, and that's okay. Like, there's no further meaning to it. If you decide that things do mean something, and moreover, negatively, I mean, that's going to define how you feel about it. And then, but you can also decide whatever meaning you attach to it as a positive, and then you can just move forward. And that I call as being strong.
Yeah. Yeah. I do find it the notion of like positive or negative versus market and how that kind of relates to like your own personal growth as a human rather than just like what your goals are as a business. Like, what is sort of your personal market in a way for your personal growth?
Wait, so I'm sorry, was that the question?
Yeah, like what is your personal market rather than like a business market?
Personal, define personal market.
Well, no, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out, because it's like it is good to have that notion from a perspective of like you're trying to venture out into the world and succeed through a business. But then I feel like a lot of these business goals or business ideals or business values still actually really apply to one's own personal life and personal growth. And so taking something like, you know, I can fail, sure, can help with any sort of economic venture, but it also can be that way personally. And so for me, I'm a musician. And so something like practicing music and playing music and knowing that I can play a wrong note or play a wrong rhythm, and that's okay. That's a personal value that I can hold, and it can help me to grow. And so it is good to know that I can mess up in music because that's how I improve. And so I guess I'm trying to find a way of applying that uh, instead of listening to your positive or your negative, listen to your market. I'm trying to find a way of applying that personally rather than business wise.
I think that like we say in business, but I think business is just a measure. It's just an indication. Like it's just a definition according to finance. Like I mean,
Mm-hmm.
business itself doesn't necessarily. I don't like my personal opinion. Like I think business or capitalism itself doesn't necessarily have a fundamental idea, but rather it's like a vehicle. It's like a framework people apply to indicate how successful they are or how, like, it just adds more context. So I think in life, when you have a dream, like aside from business, it requires the same mental framework, which is to start something and then pursue something, keep your perseverance, and then whatever it takes for you to keep that perseverance, you need to be willing to do whatever, right? Like, so I think it's just the same mindset framework, like aside from business or anything. And like if you want to make something happen, if you want to take the ownership and the leadership, like if you want to initiate something in life, it still requires the same mental framework, which is to have this or two phase of transition. First, you need to decide and own the idea and quit bitching and start working. And then the second is to be willing to be the lab provider, to be willing to just strive for whatever it happens, and then craft your mindset around it, to appropriately, so that you can look at things, hardships and hits. You can take it and then be strong enough to keep pursuing your dream. So to come back to your question, I think it's not the question of like capitalism itself. I think once again, like a business and capitalism is just like this framework or the additional, I guess, system and the indication they place on the ideas. But I think in life, it's a life skill. It's a life skill to have this ownership. It's a life skill to have this courage to have the ownership and the courage to keep pursuing your dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have these lessons applied to your personal life as well, rather than just like, I have these goals about, furthering my business? Have these things helped you in just like, I want to work out more, I want to have better habits and stuff like that?
Yeah. I go to the gym 5 times a week, like every day. Well, 5 times a week. I started like 4 years ago and I never stopped. And yeah, I mean, it's been playing off. And like for me, it's more like, it's not the workout itself, but it's more like that mindset shift. It's more like that feeling of I need to push. I need to, like, if I quit now, like I can't, like, the only thing I will make sure is that I will continue. And that's how I'm gonna outwork everybody else. Like, so that's like that just a point where I can shift my mind to be competitive, edgy, like, so yeah, I do that. And I think I mentioned this very quickly earlier, but it's kind of like a revenge also at the same time. Like I build up this revenge of like, look, like you're gonna lose if you don't keep pursuing. And do you want to lose, or do you want to, like, my pain of losing is bigger than having to do a workout, like, which is like just 1, 2, 3, well, I guess 1, 2 hours of just everyday workout, right? So that keeps me up and keep going.
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Yeah. Do you do something like that?
uh It's weird because like my habits are in flux at the moment, just because of the world being in flux at the moment. But
Mhm.
yeah, whenever I do, uh, it's a funny thing. I was just talking to my siblings about this, but like, my brother has been reading this book called Tiny Habits,
Mhm.
and the thing about kind of creating habits in your own life
Mhm.
to improve,
Mhm.
it may not have to be a big thing that you do. uh they kind of talked about like if you do a single push-up as your shower is warming up,
Mhm.
then maybe the next time you'll have the energy to do 2 push-ups, and next time you'll have the energy to do 5 push-ups, and then before you know it you're doing like 20 push-ups every day, and that's way more than you would have done otherwise. And so it's like little things that you can do in your life to improve. And
Mhm.
so like parking farther from the grocery store so that you can walk a little bit more.
Mhm.
uh, and so whenever I was working from home,
Yeah.
I would work out every morning, before starting work, and it would be like a good thing to kind of motivate me to get up rather than just lie in bed. And I could tell the difference between the days where I like decided to skip that, uh, versus the days that I actually did get up and start working out.
Right.
Uh,
I
and
see.
so it is those tiny habits
Mhm.
that really do help. And so since I recently started a different job,
Yeah.
those habits are in flux, and so I'm trying to find
Mhm.
those little things again.
Mhm. I see. Nice.
What are this is kind of a separate question, but what do you think are going to be the struggles, or are already the struggles, in doing your life up education TV,
Mhm.
and sort of having that grow and become something, and how do you plan to face those hurdles?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer of being optimistic and realist, at the same time. Like, for example, I was riding on a car with my mom, and she was doing this talk about, you know, like her mother, which is my grandmother, got like a minor cough or minor whatever, right? Like it wasn't anything major, but she started saying like, wow, like what if she had a cancer? What if she has like brain cancer? What if she like it's crazy
Yeah.
stuff. And her creativity was working in a direction that wasn't healthy at all. Like it was hurting her health even. Like, I mean, to have the negative thought, like you have the mind and body connection. So I mean, it's literally hurting your body. It's literally by having that thought, like it's literally hurting your body, and by creating you the stress that's not necessary, right? So I told her, look, like whatever you're worrying right now, like it hasn't even fucking happened yet. Like, what are you talking about, right? Like, so she was basically worrying about things that hasn't happened. So I'm a big believer of that. Like, I feel like that's one of the things that makes me courageous. That's one of the things that doesn't stop me or slow me down is to worry later. Do it first, worry later. Like whenever something hits, like that's when you figure out. Like I'm not interested in planning ahead. Like I'm not interested. Well, I mean, strategy wise, yeah, sometimes I do, but then like in terms of like, you know, preparation for this, like, what if my business goes this wrong way, blah blah blah. And if you do that, like you will die literally. Like it's just so stressful that you like think of all these scenarios that can go wrong. Like you will like literally kill yourself. So to come back to your question, like I don't necessarily think of those times because I think I'm gonna figure something out.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Uh, what I guess what skills are necessary in doing it?
I think I think your willingness, like when you are, when you know that it's your standard, like it's your responsibility, like when you truly own it, that it's something that you need to do. I mean, like there's no other alternative way. Like you clearly see the benefit of it, you clearly see the vision, you clearly see your motive. Like that's a first step. But then I guess another thing you should have is the willingness to look stupid, the willingness to fail, the willingness to, like, I think people tell me I'm humble, and that's, I mean, that's good. I mean, that's because like it helps me to be okay with failure, because before I I was surrounded by like a lot of fake people at one point in my life, and then, you know, like these people didn't want to show the you know, the, I guess not cool side of their life, even on social. You know, like what they put out, it's like so perfect, everything is so cool, and you know, they suffer zero, like, you know. But you know, in reality, like there's a lot of insecurity if you want to present yourself in that way. Like I'm a lot more authentic than these people, that like I'm not afraid of looking stupid, I'm not afraid of looking cool. Like I don't care about those things. Like I mean, like I think it's, I, if I say this, it's probably more correct, which is I did care about these things, but I programmed my mind to come out from this mindset of I deserve this or I deserve that, because I don't deserve shit. I
Yeah.
deserve if I work on it. I deserve something if I threw myself at it and then do everything and anything that I can think of to have it. But like, so to your point, like I'm willing to take good and bad of both sides, and that's why um that's the mentality I think you it's required for you to have this mindset.
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Mhm.
Oh, I guess one last thing, and it's a little bit weird, I guess, but or I guess different from what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
What's something that you've been watching, reading, or listening to that you want other people to know about?
uh no, but can you go first? What about you?
Oh yeah. Uh, I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts
Yeah.
all at once, and so
All at
one that
once?
I've
Yeah.
well, I mean, not all at once, but like, you know, I'm switching between different ones as they come out.
But hold on,
But
sorry. Can I ask you one thing?
yeah, go ahead.
How do you define good podcast episode?
It depends what kind of podcast it is.
Yeah.
So some podcasts are trying to be like this production sort of journalism kind of thing, or a kind of work of art in itself.
Mhm.
And those do that really well whenever the audio's clean, there's a compelling story, whenever there's good music in it, and everything kind of comes together to create a really good cohesive idea.
Mhm.
And then there's other podcasts that are kind of the opposite of that. They're not trying to be polished or clean. They're really just being as real and authentic as possible. And it's people just having conversations like we're having right now.
Mhm.
And you can really get some pure wisdom from that, uh, even if it's not cleaned up. And that's kind of showing you the real way in which people interact with each other, and the real way in which people learn from each other.
Mhm.
And so I have different podcasts that do both of those things. And so like one podcast that I really enjoy, that's more the second thing that I mentioned, it's unpolished, it's free form, and it's just people talking, and genuine curiosity
Yeah.
is tangentially speaking. this author Chris Ryan has this podcast where he talks to different people that he finds interesting, and his genuine curiosity is kind of what drives the conversation. And they're usually people who are very different and kind of step outside of society's rules. And he himself is someone like that. He's written 2 books, Sex at Dawn, which is about how our understanding about human sexuality and sex isn't what we generally understand it to be. And then he wrote another one called Civilized to Death, and how society and civilization don't necessarily lead to the human flourishing that we think it's leading towards.
Wow.
And so he
yeah.
And so he really thinks outside the box. And I think that even though his podcast is very free form and is not very edited or anything, that genuine curiosity and stepping outside the box always brings forth new perspectives that I really appreciate.
Right.
And then another one on the like clean, polished up work of art thing is revisionist history. And that's Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote, I mean, he's written several books, but one of them that he's most popular for is Outliers. And
I read that.
Yeah. And so he has these stories where he goes in and talks about like things in history or things that maybe in recent history that may have been perceived one way, but he goes in and digs a little bit deeper and kind of tells the story in the way that maybe it should have been told. And that's something that I really appreciate. And so those are kind of the 2 extremes of like very unpolished and free-form conversation, whereas revisionist history is more cleaned up. There's music, there's a story, everything is told in this nice arc, and it's really good.
Nice.
So what's something that you've been into that you want people to know about?
No, I mean, I listen to many things, like you said, the same way I am. I would say I wouldn't like, I mean, I find a lot of good content, yes, but the person that I want to give the most credit for is Tony Robbins. You say you know him, right? Like, I mean, he's quite famous, but really, like, I don't know, like other day I watched his video because he did this seminar with his screen with like I don't know how many people, but like there were so many people. And I don't know what about that guy, but he's so loving. Like he's so, I mean, I listen to a lot of business podcasts too. I listen to a lot of business people too, but like he's so passionate. He's very loving. He's very caring. And, of course he's successful in business and investing and everything, but he's also like very humanly, and I really enjoy his energy. And I even almost cried by just watching this like 5 minute clip of his last event. Like I really felt that like in this critical time with corona and everything, he's still striving, like he's still bringing people together, he's still sending this positive message about how capable we are. Like you should watch this video, I can send it to you, but basically he holded this event where he put together this entire like a super big screen of like thousands of people hold together. He can also see each participant because like the screen is surrounding him, right? And like I just got, it was just a clip of like 5 minutes, and I instantly got this energy of like, wow, like this is what the leader should be like. During this hard time, there are people who would blame and like break the unite and try to like blame on others and whine and bitch and blah blah. But then there's also this leader who are trying to put us all together, who's showing this possibility, who's showing this positive message. Like it was so inspirational. It was just 5 minutes, but yeah. So anyway, so he has this very special power of just really like bringing the care all us together, and then the love. And yeah, so I would definitely give him the shout out, because yeah, he was one of the first person that changed me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah. Please send me that video because I'd like to
Yeah,
see
I
that
will.
too.
I will. It's really cool to see. Like, wow. Like,
and I'm just remembering now a different podcast that I feel, I don't know if it gets enough credit, but it's called The Portal with Eric Weinstein, who's a mathematician, but he likes to think outside the box as well, kind of like how Chris Ryan does and the stuff that I explained. And so The Portal has been a great way of experiencing new ideas, experiencing new perspectives, and perspectives that people don't normally like to talk about, or sometimes perspectives that are really dense. And because I mean, he is a mathematician and he talks to physicists and he talks about physics and like dense topics like that, and kind of presents them in a way that sometimes might be difficult to understand, but by hearing these conversations from people that think in this very advanced way, I think allows everyone else to be able to be a part of that conversation too, that you don't necessarily have to have this huge background in math or physics or science or business or whatever it might be to be able to be a part of that conversation. That's something that I really enjoy about Eric Weinstein's show. So yeah.
I'll check that out.
Natsune, thank you so much for doing this with me. Once again, plug your stuff. Where can we find you and your things?
Yeah, my name is Natsune. I'm an author of The Game of Self-Domination, which is coming on August 27th. And you can find it through my website, which is lifeupeducationtv.com. I have all my social links listed on my website. I have Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, YouTube. So you can check my stuff out there. You can also buy my book through Amazon and also from my website.
Heck yeah, do it. Yeah. So once again, thank you so much. I'm Santiago Ramones.
And I'm Natsune.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music. Bloom is available now, streaming everywhere. Put it on in the background or show it to your friends so you can all enjoy it together. You can also buy it on Bandcamp and get bonus content, so you can sit alone in the dark with your headphones on and listen to the album in its entirety while reading and looking at the bonus content. I also make music with Power Cycle, an experimental electronic trio. Our first completely improvised album, Too Many Damn Cables, is streaming everywhere. More to come from Power Cycle in the future. To support this podcast, leave reviews, comments, tell your friends about it, and buy my music, because by supporting me, you're supporting the podcast. I always end the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.